Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to explain shell voicings. First off, if you like the diagrams for everything in this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. And this e-guide will be something that you can study and use as a reference for years to come. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download it. But I am working on it as I'm filming this lesson, so if it's available, a link will pop up on the screen that will allow you to download it. If no link appears, you can look in the description and it'll say whether it's available or coming soon. And if it's not available yet, you can sign up for our mailing list and we'll send you a copy as soon as it is available. Also, if you're signed up for our mailing list, you'll receive all updated versions as well. But don't worry, you don't need the e-guide to follow along with this lesson because all of the charts will be on the screen. And also be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day. This is part 3.14 from our series Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So at this point I've shown you multiple ways to play 7th chords. I've shown you closed position 7th chords, which a lot of those are really hard to play or even impossible for a lot of people. And I've also shown you more practical ones of drop 2 and drop 3 chords, and those are really common, really useful, used all the time, and you can just get a ton of mileage out of those. But in this lesson I'm going to show you another voicing, what's called a shell voicing. These are basically breaking the chords down to their essentials, so it's only going to have the essential intervals in them, which I'll explain in a second. And these can be used instead of drop chords. You can use these right in place of drop chords. They're not going to be as full of a sound, which in a lot of situations that's better, especially if you're playing with multiple instruments. A lot of times you need to stay out of the way a lot more. So they're a good option for that. But also they're a really good foundation for learning how to play other types of chords and extensions, which we're going to dive into in the next section of this series. So I think it's important now to learn how to play the shell voicings, and then in the next section we're actually going to use those a lot to build other types of chords. So they're important not only because you can actually use them to play them in songs, but also because you can use them to help you build other types of chords. So first off, I want to point out that a shell voicing is only a root, a third, and a seventh. There's no fifth in a shell voicing. And that's because the first note that you can easily omit from a chord is the fifth. You don't have to have that interval in there. Now technically, if you're spelling out the whole chord, you need to write the fifth so that it's understood what's going on in the chord. But in practical purposes, a lot of times the fifth is taken out. And that just has to do with making an easier to finger chord, especially if you get into upper extension chords or different types of chords. The fifth can come out easily. In these shell voicings, you're not playing a chord that's hard to play, but you're still removing the fifth because it's not essential. The most important intervals in a chord are the third and the seventh. So those are the two that are really going to tell you what's going on with the harmony. And the fifth is the first to go if you want it to. And actually the root is the second to go. You don't have to have the root, but we'll save that for another lesson. But just realize that if you're building a chord, if you're playing a chord, in practical purposes, you can take that fifth out if you want to. Now obviously if it's a diminished seventh or minor 7 flat 5, that 5 is adding a whole nother sound to that chord. It's an important element to actually hear what's going on with that flat 5 in there, but it can still be taken out, and I'm going to show you that in this lesson. So the easiest way to look at building shell voicing, since you already know how to build drop 3 chords, which is what's on your screen, there's a major 7 drop 3 chord on your screen starting on the 6th string. The only difference between this and a shell voicing that starts on the 6th string is you're taking that fifth out. So here's a major 7 shell voicing starting on the 6th string. And as you can see, it's just a root, a third, and a seventh. Now from here you can get all your other chords just like we've done before. You can go to the dominant 7th just by lowering the major 7 half a step. So that's your dominant 7 shell voicing with the 6th string root. Then you can go to your minor 7 just by lowering the third half a step. So that's your minor 7 shell voicing with the 6th string root. And then since there's no 5, the minor 7 flat 5 is the same voicing, since The only difference between a minor 7 and a minor 7 flat 5 is that the minor 7 has a perfect fifth and a minor 7 flat 5 has a diminished fifth. So if you're taking that fifth out, there's no difference between the two chords. So if you're playing a shell voicing minor 7 flat 5, it's the exact same shape and intervals as a minor 7 shell voicing. And then from there you can go to a diminished 7th just by lowering the flat 7 to a double flat 7 or a diminished 7th. And that's your diminished 7th shell voicing with the 6-string root. And you can see when you have a 6-string root that it goes root, it skips a string, then 7th, and then 3rd. So that's the voicing that you would use when you have a 6-string root. It's different with the 5th-string root, and with shell voicings we're only talking about the 6th-string root and 5th-string root. So when you're on the 5th string, this is a major 7th shell voicing on the 5th string with the 5th string root. Now you actually have them all on adjacent strings and you have them in order. So you have a root, 3rd, 7th. So there's a difference between starting with the 6th string root and starting with the 5th string root. And you just need to be aware of that. So then just like with the 6th string root, you can get all your other chords from this major 7th. To get to your dominant 7th, you just lower the major 7th down to a minor 7th. So that's your dominant 7 shell voicing with the 5th string root. Then to get to minor 7th, you lower the 3rd half a step to go to a minor 3rd. So that's your minor 7 shell voicing with the 5th string root. And then just like with the 6th string root, the minor 7 flat 5 and the minor 7 are the exact same since there's no 5 in there. There's no 5th to move down half a step. So it's the same voicing. And then to get to diminished 7th, you lower your flat 7 to a double flat 7 or diminished 7th. And that's your diminished 7th shell voicing with a 5th string root. So these shell voicings are really useful and should be pretty easy for you to learn at this point since you already know drop 3 chords and drop 2 chords. They're easier to play than those. You're only dealing with 3 notes and the minor 7 flat 5 and the minor 7 are the same voicing, so that makes it easier. And in the next lesson we're going to talk about harmonizing the major scale with shell voicings, and you'll see that when you're harmonizing it, it's a little easier since you're not dealing with that 5th. But these are really useful. You can get a lot of practical use out of them, and like I said, we're going to use this as a platform to build other chords in the next section of this series. So it's important to at least get the concept of these down. You don't have to memorize them all right now because all the diagrams are in the e-guide, but it's important to at least understand what's going on with shell voicings. So go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Like I said, we're going to take these shell voicings and harmonize the major scale with them. And download the e-guide. All the charts are in there, all the diagrams, and be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.